All right. First rule of this channel, we not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be after waivers for week 12 of fantasy football. This is going to be the proactive waiver wire show where we're knowing what guys are going to have value and we roll in the week that they spike. So like, we're laughing at everybody else when they're being told to be picked up off the waiver wire in this case. And I'll just get in this real quick with the story that you tell yourself about like chasing those guys when you get cute. Like if I had known that Marvin Harrison was going to go down with that appendicitis, I probably would have talked about Michael Wilson last week, but this is what the point of the channel is, like, who's got the snap share, who's going to be the guy that's probably going to be the beneficiary of vacated targets, and is it a good enough matchup to go chase that? Those higher implied point totals where you can get deeper into some of those like better offenses and hope that you can get those guys that are going to spike. Like that's kind of the idea. If you tell yourself a story and you're wrong on that story, but it was the right process, and you just didn't get that spike week, like I'm usually okay with that. If it's a guy that goes off and I couldn't have predicted that ahead of time, like those are the ones that like don't bother me at all. It's just the guys that like, yeah, I could have known that, I could have rolled that spike, I could have got that guy. In my main money league, I had Tet and Hendo both on my bench because that's a pretty stacked roster, and we just didn't feel like getting cute. And in that one, like, and that's why I have like your Joe Flacco. Like I had Joe Flacco in that league early in the week as we needed a replacement for Jackson Dart. And we rolled. I had Joe Flacco. I was ready to pull the trigger on getting cute. And the moment I saw that Brock Purdy was going to start, I was like, "Hey man, we're going for our 40-degree day. We're not going to go for upside because Joe Flacco can give you that like 10.86 game, or he could give you that like 30-point game. There's probably nothing in between when it comes down to that. So like that's kind of the difference in that one. Like, did we really want to get cute enough? And my co-manager, who's very risk averse in that league, is like, no, I don't want to get cute in that one. When it comes to Michael Wilson in my other league. We had Tet as our wide receiver too, just because of how it broke down. And I said, hey, to my co-manager, because he hasn't liked the performance that Tet's been putting up. I said, hey man, do you want to get cute off the wire? And he was like, yeah. And we rolled Michael Wilson because of those vacated targets. Now, did I think that we're necessarily going to get like 18 targets, 15 receptions, 185? No, I didn't think that, but I thought he was going to have a better outcome than like the Tet matchup out there. Now, that's just how it goes sometimes, because I actually rolled the Falcons defense against the Panthers in the high school league because thinking that they're going to play fast and beat down the Panthers, and that's just how fantasy football works sometimes. So like, if I could tell myself the story and the story works out, that's great. If I could tell myself the story and I couldn't have known how it was going to go, and I was wrong, I can live with that. Like if it's just one of those guys like Davis Mills last week being quarterback one off the wire, like I couldn't have known that. That's how it's going. Like Bryce Young this week, off the wire being like quarterback two or something like that. Like I couldn't have known that either. And I can sleep well at night knowing that like I told myself the story about getting the highest outcomes that I can get with certain guys that are available that are out there. All right. Quick housekeeping stuff for next week, and I don't want to see any comments when it comes down to it. Like, so it's Thanksgiving. The video will get out when it can get out there. It may be Friday. Hopefully it'll be Tuesday. I usually can do it on Tuesday, but like, who knows who's going to be in town and who wants to do what and stuff like that. So that's just how it's going to go on that one. Let's see. And there's no buys for the Thanksgiving week. Everybody's in play. Let's see. There's 3 Thursday night games, 1 Friday game. Those are variable games. Like they can be a little bit harder to predict. So like, are they your best guys? And do you really need to be getting cute on a game that you are going to have less ability to predict overall? Are there other guys that you can go that give you the full week to be able to guess where they're going to be playing at? Like that stuff that could be factoring into your after waivers moves going on. Now, defensive wise, there's a lot of defenses that you can be rolling. I don't know who's going to be available in your league. If the Eagles are going up against Chicago on a Friday game, you can be rolling the Eagles. Like they have been pretty good so far. The Baltimore Ravens Bengals game, I don't know if I would touch with anybody's roster at this point going on, if you're wondering about that. 49ers, they have been banged up and they got shredded this week a little bit against the Cardinals from a fantasy perspective. But the Browns would be one that I would be going after. But hey, if the Jacksonville Jaguars are available against the Titans, I would obviously be doing that. You're looking at the Colts, the possibility of the Texans. Like this is probably like deeper league that you'd be rolling them because Houston has not looked good. Dolphins could be going up against the Saints. I'm just saying. Also, the Saints might be a little bit better. They might be rollable against the Dolphins. Like that's you do you when you get cute, want to get cute like that. The Falcons and the Jets, you can kind of go either way on that one. The Jets just changed their quarterback. May not quite be Justin Fields, but Atlanta's gonna be rolling like Uncle Kirk when it comes down to that. So like you do you chasing that stuff. And again, like the Rams may be one of the better defenses out there going against the Panthers. And then Seattle against the Vikings obviously is going to be one of the premier ones if they're available in your league. And again, I don't know who's available in your league when it comes down to that. Maybe Pittsburgh, the Buffalo Bills against Pittsburgh. That could be a different quarterback there than Aaron. And then the Chargers going up as the Raiders. That could be one to be going after. And then obviously the Broncos going up against the Redskins could be another one because of the quarterback situation. And finally, like New England and the Giants could be rolling New England. So again, primarily probably the Chargers if they're available. That's not a bad one. Seahawks would probably be the premier one this week. After that, the Rams are a little dicier because of what the Panthers did, but I'd probably be still rolling the Rams if I have the ability to do that. And everybody else is pretty cute outside of the 49ers. Maybe rolling them against the Browns if they're available. And then Jacksonville against the Titans to repeat everything. All right, let's move on to what everybody's here for, team by team. So Brock Purdy, he does play. He threw those 3 touchdown passes against the Cardinals. That's what he's going to do. And then this stretch of games that are going on, like not going to be shootouts, but like theoretically he's going to have the opportunity to put up some points against the Panthers, the Titans, and then like the Colts may be a little bit of a shootout, and the Bears might be a little bit of a shootout. Browns can go a lot of different ways when it comes down. So there, this is right there, like streamable. Yeah, like probably going to be right around like quarterback 10 on a week-to-week basis because of the ability to throw touchdown passes and a little bit of nimbly-bimbly. Running back usage remained consistent between B-Rob and Christian McCaffrey. That's not surprising, and they kind of blew out the Cardinals in this one. And then wide receiver room, Slick Rick was back. He did 75% snaps, 3 targets, 1 reception, 0. That's how it goes sometimes. Like that was the other option in that high school league between Slick Rick and Tet and Michael Wilson. And, that's how it goes. So, like, glad we didn't roll Ricky Pearsall in that league right now. And this may be a little bit more of, one of those things like trying to predict the matchup, coaches coaching their way out of a brown paper bag. And are you going to be able to predict it? Like there will be Ricky Pearsall weeks. This was a George Kittle week. There'll still probably be a Juwan Jennings week. And the only guy I really want to be rolling at this point is probably like, CMC, but like you're going to probably get like a certain amount of spike. And then you're just probably going to be trying to guess what week it's going to go on. And the Colts probably definitely it's going to be the week to be rolling him out there trying to catch that. In this case, let's see. All right, had to clear my throat. All right, moving on down, and then there's still no news on Brandon Ayuk. I did see some Twitter rumblings that at this point, like you're getting closer and closer because of Ayuk, and you can look at him real quick right down here. The longer this goes on, the less likely they are to even like open his window during the fantasy football like season that it's going to matter at this point. Like this, keep that in mind if you're waiting on your Brandon Ayuk shares. And there's going to be some other guys out there to be chasing in this one. All right, running backs for the Bears. Let's go back down here. Swift had 3 red zone carries. Monongahela had 2 red zone carries. He did tug from the 1 yard line to kind of get the difference between the two. 57% snaps for DeAndre Swift, and then Monongahela was at 37% snaps in this game. What everybody is talking about, and I don't quite get this, is you looked at Oldemine, Zach Azaias, whatever. He's down to 13% snaps in this game. Equal and opposite reaction. Luther Burden only up to 44% snaps. Let's see. And I think I have a red zone opportunity that he had in this game. No, it did not write down a red zone opportunity. In this case, that kind of this makes sense to me because of the tight end usage. Cole Kmet was at 79% snaps overall, and then Loveland was at 75% snaps in this game. He did have the red zone opportunity that I wrote down in this case. So the Bears are running a lot of 2 tight ends. That's why both their tight ends are up so high. And then Burden does flop on Zach Azaias, but like at that point he's 44% snaps. Probably not even, you got to be in deep enough leagues that you're like looking to chase that, like 81% snaps for DJ Moore. You got to be in deep enough leagues that you're looking to chase Luther Burden. And, because of the overall usage in the office, not really knowing who's going to be the guy on a week-to-week basis, like there may be a spike week when it comes to Luther Burden. Are you going to be able to predict it by getting cute and then being able to tell yourself that was the right play when you go out there and you roll your Luther Burden shares? The only guy that I probably would still be wanting to bet on is going to have another spike week is going to be Colston Loveland, and that snap share with Cole Kmet back is going to be like one of those ones that I would generally be looking at that. And now it's just going to be like, can I predict the week? And week 17 is going to look really good if I can get a hold of Colston Loveland and be rolling him out there as like a flex or a tight end at this point. All right. Bengals in this one, and they kind of, are the Bengals. Let's see. Got to go to the Browns to talk about Flacco. Pittsburgh, it was kind of a close game, and then it wasn't. That's just the way it goes. Like they fell behind at like halftime, and that's just how the game went overall. Like I was more looking to go after. If I was gonna really get cute, I was gonna go after Aaron Rodgers. But at this point, like with Joe Flacco, in that matchup, like trying to catch one of these like 30, 25-point weeks, like it just didn't need to do it. So like if you're going to be rolling those guys out there, you got to know like the floor and the ceilings of the guys that you're going to be rolling out there when it comes to like your ability to spike on that one. So right now, and I got to go back to the Bengals to talk about so no news on Samaje Perine. He missed another week with the dreaded high ankle sprain in this one. Then you get Chase Brown, this one 82% snaps, like 8 targets. That's what you're generally drafted him so high about. So like hopefully, even though he started really slow, you're going to end up getting some type of push at the draft capital you put into him. Like hopefully he didn't go up into the first round and go get your Chase Browns. Like I got him in the second round in my 12-man high school league. So like I felt pretty good, but I passed on Jonathan Taylor, and me and my co-manager in that league are joking about the fact like, well, we just didn't want to run away with the league. That's why like we just didn't draft him. Taj Brooks with 11% snaps overall in this game. Remember, kind of got a little out of hand later on. Other news: Jamar Chase, he did get suspended. I'm not going to talk about why, is like spitting and all that stuff. And I did see before I went live that it did get upheld today, so he's going to miss one game. This would like obviously elevate T. Higgins. The one thing that I would talk about with Yosivas, and he was at like 74% snaps in this game. I don't know if you're necessarily going to get him to jump a tier because Chase is out. He may be the number 2 on paper. He may still play kind of like that slot role that he's been doing overall with interchangeable with Chase to be able to get Chase where you want Chase to go with T. Higgins and all that stuff that are on the field. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to step up into that range just because Jamar Chase is out. And then trying to guess who the next guy is with Jermaine Burton, like illness, healthy scratch, all that stuff that's going on. And then like your Charlie Jones is out there, and I think Tinsley is also been getting a run like 25, 11% snaps. Like trying to guess who's going to be the wide receiver 3 in this place. Like I do think in your deeper leagues, like Yosivas would be the next guy who would be rolling, and I don't necessarily know even if like you're going to be able to predict Jermaine Burton in your dynasty type leagues if you're going to be trying to like get like sneaky on that one. And I still don't care about the tight ends for the Bengals. Rolling down here, Bills are some fun news when it comes to the Bills if you want to get a little fun. So overall, running back usage remained consistent. Like Ray Davis phased out of the offense, 2% snaps overall. And then wide receivers, this is where we're going to get a little fun now. Take this with a grain of salt because you got Dalton Kincaid being out with that hamstring. It says won't practice on Tuesday for whatever that's worth. Dawson Knox went up to 77% snaps. That's not surprising. Little surprising, and this kind of was a shootout with the Bills, is Jackson Haas was down 34% snaps. I would imagine it would have been a little bit higher, but it was not. And then Khalil Shakur remained relatively consistent at 54% snaps. Josh Palmer down to 50% snaps, and he's a little dinged up right now. And then Keon Coleman wasn't a healthy scratch because I guess he missed a meeting or something like that that's going on. So now we can start like looking at where the vacated opportunities went. We get a Gabe Davis sighting, finally 41% snaps overall in the game, and he did have a red zone opportunity. Curtis Samuel was at 50% snaps in this game overall. Elijah Moore was a healthy scratch in this one. So like why this is all a little interesting is like why tracking the channel becomes like fun sometimes. Terrell Shavers, who I know nothing about other than I thought he was like the blocking tight end for the Bills. 54% snaps, 5 for 4, or 5 targets, 4 receptions, 90 yards, 1 touchdown on that 54% snaps. Also had 86 air yards, like that actually led everybody when it comes to the Bills. Now, I don't know how to deal with this because like you get the Keon Coleman disciplinary scratch. You also get the return of Gabe Davis at 41% snaps with the red zone opportunity. Expectation, he reverts back to the practice squad. Expectation that Gabe Davis theoretically could play again, eat more into that X position that like Keon Coleman was playing. If you're in the right league and you want to be chasing that you're going to get like that uptick again on Terrell Shavers, like just taking the job away from Keon Coleman and, trying to guess that you're going to get like that boom bust type of exposition that we've seen out of the Bills before. Like, yeah, there you go. If you have the ability to be cute on that one, and then like your matchup shopping for like, hey, how long you're going to be holding on Terrell Shavers, or you just want to hear the name ahead of time before everybody else goes out there and hunts that guy, like hunts him down. The Bengals, the Patriots, and then probably those are the two main games that I'd probably be looking at rolling him out. Like definitely week 14 might get a little fun if you're going to be holding on to like Terrell Shavers for a couple weeks to see like if he's going to be the next big thing that's going to be out there. And again, I already talked about the Bills and their tight ends, so I can move on to the Broncos. So I did talk about this with RJ Harvey. Kind of when you're right, you're right. Kind of when you're wrong. When it comes to RJ Harvey, so 61% snaps, 3 red zone carries, 1 red zone target, and then Jaleel McLaughlin came in on his 13 opportunities or 13% snaps. In this one, 2 red zone opportunities. He did vulture the tug. I did went up and look at the game log. RJ Harvey had 3 straight red zone 3 straight opportunities before Jaleel McLaughlin came in on 4-yard, 2 back-to-back 4-yard carries to punch it in. So that's how it went. So like still maybe RJ Harvey is going to be the red zone guy. It's just like maybe the overall game flow is why Jaleel McLaughlin got in there. And Tyler Beatty did have 13% snaps. He also had a red zone target on top of that. So like, hey, there's nothing to say that like I'm still not rolling RJ Harvey as an RB2. Like this, it's just how it works out sometimes when it comes down to it. Now, wide receivers, first and foremost, like Marvin Mims down to 24% snaps, and then we can start looking at some of the other guys. Now, sneaky Pat Bryant jumps all the way up to 56% snaps, 6 for 5 for 82 in this game, and I don't think I wrote down any. Oh, did have a red zone opportunity in this one. So like with all that, so like now you have those vacated opportunities when it comes to like Marvin Mims, the snap share going down and remaining down at 24% snaps coming back, and then you got that like the slight bump with Pat Bryant. Like I still probably would not be chasing this. The main thing is with Cortland Sutton doing like his normal 92% snaps is Troy Franklin slightly down, not surprising, 66% snaps, but 8 for 4 for 84 in this one, and 193 error. So yeah, like the spike week is going to be there. The tracking the usage on a week-to-week basis is going to happen, and they're going into a bye week. Still don't care about the Broncos tight ends. All right, Browns. A little bit to talk about, like probably nothing too fantasy relevant in this one. So where is he at? So Dylan Gabriel gets knocked out in the concussion protocol, and I did watch a little bit of Shakir Sanders, and yeah, like probably worse than I was expected for what he's going to be on that one. Like if you're going to chase the nimbly bimbly, and then the matchups at this point, like yeah, you could talk about the Raiders. Yeah, you could talk about the 49ers, like down the line, like Tennessee. Like there are some good matchups if you want to try and catch like a spike week. Probably got to be like what super flex or something like that you'd be chasing something along those lines down there. And then running back usage remain relatively consistent. Don't really care about that. The one thing I will talk about, like Cedric Tillman as at 78% snaps. The reason why I bring this up in the offense is if you're going to try and track like a spike week out of like Judy or Cedric Tillman down the line because of kind of like how the wide receivers and everything are going to be utilized down the line, or utilize whatever. Isaiah Bond was at 42% snaps. So if you're like looking to try and find like another one of those like spike weeks, if you have to be able to pull these guys off the wire, like Baltimore would have been a good week, but like again, the Raiders, the 49ers right there, and we're going to talk more about the 49ers and how dinged up they are. Like with Tet doing what Tet did, or not Tet, with Tet doing what Tet did this week, and then he's going to see the 49ers this week, and you have Michael Wilson that did the 49ers this week, and they kind of like Tet and Michael Wilson are physically the same, similar, but Tet ended up getting more slot snaps. But they're both like a big body receiver, sort of like Cedric Tillman. You could be getting to the point where like, okay, 49ers back-to-back weeks, and then you roll your Cedric Tillman. That's the whole point why I brought him up. That's why like if I'm rambling all over the place. Tight end room, David Njoku, a little bit of a new usage flop, 65% snaps to Njoku. Harold Fannin, 73% snaps. And the other thing you're probably looking at if you're going to be chasing your Cedric Tillman or something like that down the line is like I probably would not be doing it with Sanders. I would probably be maybe guessing that you could get some type of functional offense with Dylan Gabriel down the line if you want to get like cute on any of that stuff. All right, Buccaneers. So Bucky misses another week, and then I guess the rumors are this week they are going to test him in some type of physical practice to see how the shoulder works out. Now, did see this with Rachaad White. He's at 60% snaps, and I got to scroll down here. So let's see. I gotta move over to Sean Tucker so I can explain this in my notes. There you go. 44% snaps to Sean Tucker in this one. Got almost all of the second half work did flop and go to him. So the 60% snaps to Rachaad White, that's mostly first half. Sean Tucker does most of the second half damage in this one. 4 red zone opportunities went to him. He tugged on one. He had one red zone target went to White. One red zone carry went to White also. Sean Tucker's touchdowns went on a 43-yarder, a 6-yarder, a 28-yarder. Generally, my thoughts are going to be very similar to everybody else that I've kind of listened to when it comes down to like Sean Tucker versus Bucky Irving. If you get, mostly you're going to be looking at blocking. If you get another week with Bucky Irving out, you probably are going to be looking at like an absolute roll when it comes to like Sean Tucker. There may be a possibility that you're going to get something of a 3-headed monster in this backfield, like 20% to Rachaad White in that like third down roll. Sean Tucker's going to be like chasing pace back. You might be looking at like 20-30% snaps and then 40% snaps to Bucky Irving. Now, it generally does not matter from a fantasy football perspective. Snap share. It's just good to know, like, overall, like, we can kind of look at the usage. Running backs can be down as low as, like, 40% snaps if they're used correctly, and it ends up being, like, red zone opportunity guy and design passing work guy in an offense with red zone opportunities. So, like, that's what you generally would be looking at. So, like, blocking, absolutely don't want to see Sean Tucker. We'll talk about some of the other blocks that are going on when it comes down to it. And then with Bucky being back, like, the biggest thing with Sean Tucker at this point, because of the injury to Bucky, would be that, like, you may end up getting like a shake and bake, like high end RB2, low end RB1, if Bucky Irving just can't stay healthy. Because if he's been out this long, like, who knows if that thing's gonna like be able to handle contact. That's how I would look at it if you're gonna be chasing these guys. And again, like, one of the things is like design passing work. Could see that staying relatively consistent with Sean Tucker down the line. All right. Wide receivers, I did see on Twitter sphere that Emeka Egbuka is being schemed up by other teams to take him away, and because they don't really have anybody else to throw the football to, that's why you're getting like such high variance when it comes to him overall in the offense. That's not going to change anything. And then until like Mike Evans comes back, which is probably not going to be fantasy related, and Chris Godwin is probably not going to be the guy that's going to really open things up for Egbuka. Also, there's no news on Chris Godwin. Tez Johnson is going to remain in that like boom bust like wide receiver 3 range in this one. He was at like you were right there, 83% snaps in this one. One red zone target, one red zone carry. So again, like getting red zone opportunities overall. I think Egbuka did have one on top of that, and I don't really care about like the overall usage for K. Dotton. There's nothing there. I think you got a red zone opportunity if you're wondering about like chasing that stuff overall. All right, Cardinals in this one. Let's see. So Jacoby Brissett, like, he Bortles his way into like 23.88 points. And again, like, your scoring settings may be a little bit different than mine. Could have guessed this ahead of time because of how banged up the 49ers are. Just kind of remember that. Overall, then our boy Amari Mercado, who goes down with the dreaded high ankle sprain in this one. And then you're looking at like Zonovan Knight. They fell behind early. They were like just trying to stay somewhat competitive in the game. 42% snaps went to him. And 43% snaps went to Michael Carter. And I didn't write down any red zone because overall, again, the game script was all over the place. It didn't really matter. They fell behind like really early. I think right off the bat, like Christian McCaffrey scored like a 1-yard rushing touchdown because they took the opening kickoff to the 1-yard line, and it was like behind the 8 ball at that point. So with Marvin Harrison being out with that appendectomy at this point, appendix, who knows when that, like, I have no idea even how to guess this. I'm going to imagine that like you can't get an organ removed and then get physical contact next week without the possibility you're going to have a bleed. That's just what I would generally, with my limited medical knowledge that I have, I would just guess that overall. Like Michael Wilson, again, like, I don't know how much this is going to translate on a week-to-week basis because I don't think that they're necessarily going to move him around and deploy him in the offense a certain way. And the number one is going to be like Trey McBride. So like you're looking at the possibility, and I did see that Jacoby Brissett, like, record-setting 47 completions, and again 57 pass attempts in the game. Like, you have to fall into a certain game script to get all this to come together where you have like 18 targets go to Michael Wilson if you're going to be chasing that. Now, I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea to be chasing Michael Wilson with Jacoby Brissett. I just don't like you're not getting this. That's the main thing. And like Jacksonville's going to be a little interesting. They've been all over the place. Tampa Bay, you might get a little bit of something. Like there are some games where it could go in the right script if you want to be chasing all that stuff down the line, if you need that out of these guys. And then let's see. Greg Dortch was at 68% snaps. He did tug in this one, but he was not like right there. He was not the guy like Xavier Weaver. No idea. 74% snaps. He's the guy that stepped in with that. I think he's like a 6th round draft pick now. I think about something like that when it comes down to him. All right. Chargers, and they just got smashed by the Jaguars. Like, not a lot to say about them overall when it comes to usage, other than like they're going into a bye week. Hampton is supposed to be back coming out of the bye week in this one, and then like what you're gonna do with like Kamani Vidal. I'll probably be releasing him in my high school league. There's like one less bench space in that one. May get some type of split backfield when these two guys, but I imagine if Hampton is somewhat healthy, they're gonna go back to him. And the only thing that you're going to look at value when it comes to Vidal is coming out of the bye. If Hampton is not available, like right off the bat, you might get another week in that, like and you can see like 52% snaps because they got smashed overall in this game. And it wasn't Jarrett Patterson. I didn't even look this up to find out who's the other guy because I don't really care. And then the only other thing that I would kind of talk about is I think Gadsden had like 61 air yards on his 5 targets, 88% snaps. Wide receiver usage remained relatively consistent, even though like they got smashed. So yeah, there you go. Running back room for the Chiefs. Isaiah Pacheco, he's out another week. Who knows if he's going to play this week? He got 80% snaps out of Kareem Hunt. Scrolling down here, let's see. 2 red zone opportunities went to him. 2 carries. He tugged on one of them. And then, not surprising, Rashad Smith on his 17% snaps. He did have 2 red zone targets also. That's really not surprising overall. That I could definitely see that he may end up in that like Jarrett McKinnon role late in the season if you're going to be tracking any of that stuff, deeper type leagues. Rashee Rice, 3 red zone opportunities, only 39 air. And then you did get like somewhat unicorn type outcome for Travis Kelce, 13 for 9 for 91 and a touchdown overall in this game. I think it was a 21 yarder, so it's just outside the red zone. Colts were on bye, so I don't have anything to talk about with them. Redskins with Jalen Daniels being out, and the news on Jalen Daniels right now, because I do have him in my high school league, so I'm trying to track this. Supposedly they're going to reevaluate him after the bye and decide if they're going to put him on IR. So I still have not dropped him, but it's probably a roster space that I could, if I want to get spicy, I could open up if I want to be dropping him, because I imagine that there's no reason to bring him back at this point overall, but it's obviously not as bad as we originally thought it was going to be, because they have not shut him down yet. Bill, 27% snaps in this game. 3 red zone opportunities went to him. C-Rod started the game up, and then they were working in early. Where's C-Rod? Right there. 45% snaps, 15 for 79, 1 for 1 for 6. He did have 4 red zone opportunities. That's the guy that I want. I don't think the offense is going to be good. Jeremy McNichols is at 25% snaps also in that role. 2 for 2 for 16, 4 for 13. He did have a red zone opportunity also. So yeah, I don't want anything when it comes down to all that stuff. Wide receiver room, Jalen Lane get knocked out with a hip, it looks like. He's the rookie. Still no Scary Terry. Like after that, it just gets really ugly. So yeah, that's what I would generally think going after the Redskins. If you got to be, if you're going after the Redskins at this point in the season, just to talk about this real quick, like trying to go after like better offenses, like instead of trying to potentially predict like a bad offense, because right now we can talk about like the bad offense being the Redskins. Like maybe there's a little bit of C-Rod that I would like down the line, like low end RB2. But like I probably would rather be if I'm going to be getting cute off the wire, like pulling like a Michael Wilson or something like that, it would be going after like higher expected scripts, like more passing because the team's going to be playing from behind. Go after the wide receivers, going after like deeper options in good offenses that are going to be playing in shootouts, something like that. That's how I would look at like a guy actually rolled. Where is he at in my high stakes league? Going back to like Sean Tucker, a guy in my high stakes league rolled Sean Tucker this week, and he got the spike. This is how it goes. Luckily, I didn't have to face him, but guys can predict that stuff when you really want to get after it on some of these things. Okay, Redskins. Dallas, a little bit with the running back situations. So you're looking at Jaden Blue was another healthy scratch again, and then Malik Davis. He was elevated. He operated as the number 2 right now. I don't know have anything on Phil Maffa if he's ever going to come back and play. That would probably like the biggest thing that I would talk about with all those guys is trying to guess who is going to get the usage if Javonte, if something happens to Javonte, not necessarily a bad game. 78% snaps. There's nothing to tell me that they're going to get any flop out of that. Probably be a split backfield if it comes down to it. All right, Dolphins in this one, and this is I think the Spain game. overall. So running back usage is H.A. was at 80% snaps. Like some of this gets a little wild. 7 red zone carries for him, 2 red zone targets in this game. Ollie Gordon, he flops back to being the number 2. 39% snaps in this one, 6 red zone opportunities. He tugs on a 1-yarder. And then Jalen Wright, he drops down to 2% snaps overall, like being able to guess overall usage. And then wide receivers, like, I don't know. 50% snaps for Malik Washington. Nick Westbrook-Akini was at 27% snaps. And after that, like, it wasn't Taj Washington. And, like, I don't particularly care at that point. Trying to guess who the other wide receiver is going to be in that offense, if you're wondering. Eagles, not a lot to talk about other than your cuff chasing. So Tank Bigsby was at 11% snaps, 4 for 34 in this game. Will Shipley was at 10% snaps, no usage. My guess would be if you get an injury to Barkley, it's going to be a split backfield. You may get the receiving work out of Shipley. You may get like the gravy rushing work out of Tank Bigsby. And then you're going to be guessing like who's going to end up being the goal line red zone guy. We already know the answer to that is Jalen Hurts. So that would be my estimation on what the value of the cuffs are for the Eagles at this point. All right, a lot of stuff when it comes to the Falcons. First and foremost, like Michael Penix done for the year. Looks like he did re-injure that ACL, and he's had like a lot of a career worth, like going back to college, of ACL injuries. Uncle Kirk comes in, and he's not very good overall on 38% snaps, 6 for 14, and then like overall, who cares? Then running back situation, Bijan does 85% snaps. I gotta scroll down to them. 3 red zone opportunities, 2 tugs, 1 red zone target, and these were like goal line carries. I think he had like it was 5 yards or within the 5-yard line that he had these, and then like Algier comes in on 21% snaps. He does get a 1-yard carry late in the game to continue his streak of vulturing touchdowns away from Bijan at this point. So moving on to the wide receiver room, Drake London, 92% snaps. I guess he did get hurt in like overtime. It's a PCL injury. It's the same thing that's been going on with like Brock Bowers and Slick Rick and all that stuff. Like I guess it's the bent knee on like the turf that's causing these PCL injuries. From what I've been able to track on this one. So like week to week, who knows? You're probably going to look at like what the practice participation is going to be like tomorrow and then down the line. And like everybody's already talking about like with Penix being out, Kirk Cousins coming in, like, you might get like multiple weeks that you get no London. And even if he comes back early, he may not be the right guy. And they got not a lot to play for. And then, as Uncle Kirk got anything left in the tank that you're going to be able to push the ball down vertically down the field, all that stuff you got to factor in to being able to guess on what you're going to do with Drake London at this point. I was a little surprised, like it was not Cordell Hodge that came in overall at this point. It does look like it was David Sills, because I was wondering why he was getting usage late in the game. 56% snaps. I would normally in the past when Drake London has missed, it is Cordero Hodge. You see like 66% snaps there. Like maybe David Sills in this offense. I don't know overall. And then you're going to be like primarily, if you're going to be guessing, I guess like Mooney did go out with like ribs or something like that, 92% snaps. If you're going to be trying to guess those vacated opportunities, I don't necessarily think Casey Washington is going to be the guy. That would be my best guess, but I think he fills in more for Mooney when Mooney's been out. So maybe you're gonna get Sills, maybe you're gonna get Hodge at this point. Like the two main beneficiaries, if there's gonna be beneficiaries to Drake London being out, it's gonna be like Kyle Pitts. Remember, vacated targets go to running backs first, and then tight end second. It would be Kyle Pitts getting the upgrade if you think the offense is gonna get better, and then like Bijan, there may be more targets that are gonna go to him. And as I told my co-manager in my money league, when it comes down to like this Kirk Cousins situation, when it comes to like your Bijan, if you're the Bijan over, it can go either way. Don't listen to the guys on the internet. They don't know, because again, more opportunities could go to Bijan, and they could be the right design plays. Again, coaches have to find a way to coach themselves out of brown paper bag. They could be the right opportunities from a fantasy football perspective, because we don't really care about like real football. If they get design passing work going to Bijan because there's vacated opportunities, that's a good thing, because passing work is better than rushing work overall. Now, if the offense is just bad because the coaches are stupid, because unfortunately a lot of the coaches in the NFL are stupid, they're just going to run Bijan in the back of an offensive line because he's their best player, and like teams are just going to put like 52 guys in the box, and they're going to force Kirk Cousins to force the ball vertically down the field because he can't do it anymore. I think, again, the problem is not going to be any of that when it comes to the Falcons offense. It's going to be the fact that the Falcons offense has been inconsistent regardless from a fantasy football perspective of who's on the field at any given time. And I don't think that's going to change regardless of the situation. And that, like, you're going to have certain weeks that you're probably going to have to like really think about it. Seattle week 14, maybe week 17 with the Rams. Like, those are going to be like some pretty ugly script games overall when it comes to the Falcons. All right. Giants, no news right now on Jackson Dart. And then famous Jameis came in and made the game competitive. Did have a rushing touchdown late. If you're into that type of thing. Running back usage basically went down the way that like we thought we were. Running back usage was going to go down. 51% snaps to Tyrone Tracy. Devin Singletary, 49% snaps. I got to scroll down to the Giants. One red zone opportunity went to Tyrone Tracy. 9 red zone opportunities went to Devin Singletary. He tugged on 2 of those. He also had a red zone target overall in this game. Now, I bring all this up to say that, like, yes, Devin Singletary is probably still your 40-degree day, and Tyrone Tracy is going to have the better opportunity to put up like a 30-point spike week, a la like your Henderson, where he can rip one off from like 30 yards out, and you get enough bulk overall in a game that you're gonna have like your higher upside. Because if even a Singletary gets the right red zone opportunities and he Yahtzees on it like he did this week, if he gets like some random carry from the 50-yard line, he's probably not going to be able to rip off the touchdown run because he's a 4-6 guy and Tracy's like a 4-4 guy. The other possibility is in the design passing work role, you're still going to get Tyrone Tracy having the opportunity. So you get it all together in the right week. 15.9 goes to Tyrone Tracy, and then Devin Singletary, he does like 17.2. Again, your scoring set is maybe a little bit different than mine. And in this case, like Tyrone Tracy converts early. Those 2 rushing touchdowns go to him, and then we're having an entirely different conversation. So you're still probably rolling your Tyrone Tracy and your Devin Singletary. And it just depends, like, if you're in a spot where your roster is designed in a particular manner that you're rolling either one of these guys, like you're probably not as in good a shape, or hopefully you're rolling them as a flex, then you're putting together one of those juggernaut type lineups out there, or you're in deep enough leagues that like Kyle Juszczyk, it looks pretty good on a week-to-week basis, something along those lines. Now, wide receiver room. Isaiah Hodgins comes in as a 79% snap, 6 for 5 for 57. If you're chasing, I wouldn't be chasing. And that's going to be with Darius Slayton out. Like Jalen Hyatt was not the guy, 61% snaps overall. Little disappointed, kind of, I guess, that with Theo Johnson having the week to potentially be like the unicorn, he doesn't do a lot, but like there's a lot of if, buts, and maybes. You're coming down to like not a good matchup. Jackson Dart's out. Jameson Winston's in. Like, I can understand why from a fantasy perspective, benching him, even though like you could get the theoretical unicorn thought process. All right, Jags. A little bit strange. So they just absolutely smashed the Chargers in this game. So I was watching the ticker. So Tootin did at one point before the ankle injury just absolutely out opportunity Etienne. However, Etienne did start the game, but they were rotating in on the individual drives. So like this wasn't like the Rams where they were flopping back and forth between like Kyron and Blake Corum. Like, no, they were actually working in on the same drive at the same time. Etienne on his 49% snaps, 9 red zone opportunities, 2 touchdowns. Like some of those came late after the Tootin ankle injury. Overall, you could stare at Etienne in this one. And then Tootin again, like right there, 32% snaps overall, 15 for 74, a touchdown. He did have 4 red zone opportunities. He did tug on one of them, so like, there you go. LaQuint Allen also in this game, he was at 20% snaps. He did have 2 red zone opportunities also to go along with it. Trying to figure out the wide receivers, and we got to go to the Raiders first to talk about like Jacoby Myers. 65% snaps, 6 for 5 for 64. And generally speaking, I think this is how he's going to function in the offense. He's just going to be the stick mover, so he's going to have a certain amount of value. I don't know how much spike you're going to get out of him, but like you're just looking like 40-degree day with maybe a little bit extra on the side, some on a time-to-time basis. Maybe you're going to get a red zone opportunity, something along those lines. Brian Thomas, he was out again with an ankle. Our boy Parker Washington, 76% snaps, 2 for 2 for 20. That's not really surprising, especially with like the game flow overall, like the beatdown that went on. And then Tim Patrick did vulture a touchdown, 58% snaps. I don't really care about that overall. Then the other thing with the tight end room, I guess Brenton Strange is like looking like he's going to come back. If you get the possibility of Thomas being out again, this would probably jump Brenton Strange right up into that like get cute range overall down the line as long as Brian Thomas is out. Probably not going to be as interested in chasing Brent Strange. Once Thomas comes back, because I think it's going to be harder to predict the distribution of opportunities, are probably better streaming tight ends that are going to be available at that point. All right, Jets, and we'll go to the quarterback room. So again, like Justin Fields, he plays on Thursday night. He falls in the end zone. He gives you your quarterback a 40-degree day. There you go. That's why you go out and you can play guys like this. Unfortunately for Justin Fields, he's going to get benched for Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor, he does have a little nimbly bimbly. He's not Justin Fields when it comes to the nimbly bimbly. It probably upgrades the overall toys. That's probably the biggest news out of it if you're like a Brees owner or something like that. So overall, when it comes to Brees, I don't think I wrote down anything when it comes to the running back usage overall, so I'm not really interested in that. They did IR Garrett Wilson, if you're wondering about that, and then go to the Colts so I can talk about this. So I did see the Twitters on good old Adonai Mitchell. And there's some pretty funny memes that they're out there. Like there's the Moneyball meme where it's like, hey, let me introduce you to a perfect X receiver that can't catch a football. So some of these 6 targets that did not convert into receptions were because they hit his hands and he couldn't bring them in. So 49% snaps. So again, like I the same notes I said last week. Sure you can, but why would you at this point overall when it comes to the offense? And that's generally I probably the bigger beneficiary of this, as long as Garrett Wilson out, would be potentially like Mason Taylor being upgraded with Tyrod Taylor coming in. All right. Lions, let's see, I blew out the Redskins in this. I don't want to talk about that. That was left in. They lost an ugly game right here. I got to talk about Jared Goff here in a second. They lost an ugly game to the Eagles. There are going to be some upcoming games with Jared Goff, like this week 14, week 15 games. These 2 games that you'd be rolling out Jared Goff, expecting you're going to get your spike weeks when it comes to passing touchdowns with him overall. The other thing is, and I did see that with Sam Laporta going on IR with that back, they were living in like 11 personnel, three wide receivers. That's not entirely surprising. Then you get like Khalif Raymond. He goes down with ever battling cramps. 64% snaps. We get Isaac Tisla up to 34% snaps overall. The other a little interesting thing that I saw, you got like 12 targets out of the Sun God, 147 air on him. And then Jameson Williams, like he's the guy that gets it done in this week. 95% snaps, 7 for 4 for 88 and a touchdown. This is one of the things, like good coaches will flop usage overall. And they did lose the game, but like if teams want to take away certain things, and then you have to be able to put that wrinkle in. And I can see that's why that occurred. Tight end room right here, Brock Wright, 83% snaps, 7 for 2 for 8, and then I bring up the air yards because he had three whole air yards overall in the game. Now, what I will say with Brock Wright, if he's going to be on the field 83% of the time, and the way that the Lions run, and they're pretty good, you can get a red zone opportunity on any given week when it comes to Brock Wright, just because of that. I don't necessarily think you're going to get any type of vertical usage overall with him in the offense. He's the blocking tight end, getting the upgrade overall. All right, Packers in this one, and they did pull it out against the Giants. Go to running backs. So I've seen this all over the place when it comes to Josh Jacobs going from like the season-ending knee injury, and now we're to the point where it's like a knee, and he's a coin flip about whether or not he's going to play or not. Like, so I don't know when it comes down to that. Like, he does tend to play, even though his practice participation may be like three missed practices, three DNPs, and he still might play. Emmanuel Wilson was at 71% snaps in this game. He did have 2 red zone opportunities. I believe that Jacobs did have 3 before he went out of the game. And then the other thing that I thought was a little interesting is Chris Brooks did not come in and get a significant bump in the snap share after the injury. He was only at 9% snaps. I would imagine that he would have been the brick wall. So like he would have probably maybe inherited like 20% snaps plus or minus, and he didn't do that. So like you may get like some type of like 1 week full bell cow out of Emmanuel Wilson, but it's looking like less and less like you're going to get significant amount of work. Like I probably would be blocking more so than expecting that you're going to get anything out of him, and you're probably going to be like going all the way to kickoff to find out if Josh Jacobs is going to play overall. All right. Wide receiver room, Matthew Golden, 35% snaps. When you're wrong, you're wrong. We're going to be saying that a lot right now when we're talking about the Packers. 76% snaps to Romeo Doubs. Did see that Jaden Reed, could return to practice on Wednesday, whatever that means on Slooper. Like not something I saw on the Twitters. to confirm that. Dontavian Witt's 56% snaps overall. And then the other thing is, we're going to bring up Christian Watson, 78% snaps, 5 for 4 for 46, 2 red zone opportunities. He converts both of those. Like, should not be available on your wire. If he is, yeah. There you go. Tight end room, and this is where it gets funny. So, like, again, when you're wrong. Luke Musgrave all the way down to 35% snaps in this game. Josh Weil was at 36% snaps, and then Fitzpatrick goes all the way up to 64% snaps. So I'm probably not chasing any of those guys, and then probably like any opportunities are going to be trying to guess the really crowded wide receiver room for the Packers. All right, running backs for the Panthers. Let's go wait to this one first. So Bryce Young in this one, like I think he was like quarterback 2 on the week. You just go check that real quick. Yeah, right there. Quarterback 2 on the week right now. And that was really surprising to me. I don't know how you would have predicted this. Overall, again, like I rolled the Falcons defense against the Panthers overall. So like I don't know how much you're going to be able to predict this, other than the fact that like the 49ers just got lit up by Jacoby Brissett from a fantasy football perspective. So you might be able to get at least another week out of this when it comes to the Panthers. And again, like if you're going to be in like your 2 quarterback leagues, or rolling out your Bryce Young, you need some type of streamer. Running backs, 83% snap to Rico Dowdle. They did overturn a touchdown late in this one that would have given you like more than like your 40-degree day out of him overall. 10 total red zone went to him. 2 red zone went to Chuba overall on what was left. Tet in this one, and go to this one. 4 red zone went to him. He did tug on 2 of those. I did see on the Twitter that like part of the reason why he did have the spike week 12 for 8 for 130 is because like you got more slot deployment out of him, which is again coaches kind of trying to figure out like how to coach their way out of brown paper bag. And again, like this is this stuff that's like why haven't you figured this out, like to get put your best players in the most advantageous position to do good things. It baffles me, the guy they get paid to do it sometimes. All right, don't exactly know why Xavier Legette's snaps were down 55% snaps, because it said hip, and then I think he came back in the game and all that stuff. What's going on with him? And then Coker was up to 68, or not up. I did see on the Twitter that Coker did out route Leggett overall in the game. But again, if there was an injury behind that, then I would explain that overall. I did not see anything else to really explain that overall. And then Tommy Tremble, I did see this like 2 for 1 for 54 or 57% snaps. So like it probably doesn't matter overall. All right. New England, and this is I did have this written down. I want to go back and I want to talk about this because I forgot to do it earlier. So going after certain guys that have the ability to have the spike weeks, with like Josh Allen's being able to do like 6 total touchdowns in this game against Tampa Bay and doing like 44.6 points. And again, your scoring settings may be a little bit different than mine. There's a limited amount of guys that have this ability to spike, and that's why I go to like your Drake Mays and your Justin Fields. That's why I talk about like your Justin Fields, like being able to go out there and find the guys that are going to be able to potentially have the range of outcomes to compete with the guy that puts in the capital for like a Josh Daniels or a Josh Allen. And like Drake May at this point, like he may not end up being able to do like a 44 point week. But here's the thing, like he's one of those few guys at the capital that you put in that are going to be able to compete with the guy that had to go up and spend like a second or third round draft pick or something like that on Josh Allen. The value of those guys going after some of the other guys that are likely going to be like, fine, their punt. If you want to win your league, you have to take that risk to be able to go after those guys. That's how I would see it overall when it comes down to this stuff. Ramondre right now, it does look like he's supposed to practice on Wednesday for whatever that's going to mean. And then I did actually watch some of the tape on Tre'Davion Henderson's 3 touchdowns. Again, if he's probably not going to get the goal line with Henderson's coming back, or Stevenson coming back, I don't know how much you're going to be able to get like kind of the fluky overall usage overall. Like he scored 2 7-yard touchdowns and then like a scramble drill or receiving touchdown. Like, chasing touchdowns is a good way to win your league. It's a good way to lose your league. So at this point, like, I don't necessarily know if you're going to get any of this to sustain itself, even though this week 12, the Bengals might be a really good week. And then you have a couple other good weeks down the line when it comes to them, like Buffalo and Baltimore down the line. You might be able to get some massive spike. but you also might get like that ugly 40-degree day to go along with it when it comes to Henderson down the line. Like he's not going to likely get like the goal line opportunity. He's going to have to score from like 7 yards out. I don't know how predictive that's going to be down the line. All right, wide receiver usage overall with Butte remaining out. You did get an uptick in Stephon Diggs up to 69% snaps. Now we can start talking about him potentially being a league winner. Overall, Mac Hollins remained consistent, 85% snaps in this game. Kyle Williams was at 67% snaps, only 3 targets. No, didn't convert any of that in there. And then Pop Douglas remained consistent overall in this game. Let's see. All right, Raiders, they got blown out by the Cowboys. I don't think I have a lot to say about them. So I got to go to the Titans to talk about like Lockett. Didn't get the spike that I was kind of expecting to go on, 47% snaps overall in this game. And then I just don't really know where the rest of the opportunities disappeared to. Thornton was at 38% snaps, nothing. Beck was only at 15% snaps overall in this game. Like Thornton was the guy. Not Thornton. Trey Tucker was the guy at 97% snaps, 8 for 447, and got like that late touchdown overall in the game. So like they were in 2 tight ends. If you're wondering, 77% snaps. It was ugly. And Brock Bowers at 97% snaps, 12 for 7 for 72. So like there you go. If you're gonna be chasing that, so like disappointing versus the matchup. Trying to predict that like shootout with the Cowboys, it didn't materialize in this one. Rams, and I guess I have written down that they held on to beat the Seahawks in this one. I guess they're playing a lot of like weird 13 personnel, like multiple tight ends on the field. That would explain why Puka's snap share is down to 67. But if he's going to do like 8 for 7 for 75, I don't really think it matters at this point. And then you're also looking at Devontae Adams doing 8 targets, but like 1 for 1 for 1 in the passing game. So like there you go sometimes. And again, like overall, running back usage remains basically consistent. 69% snaps with the Kyren Williams. 4 red zone opportunities. He tugged on one. He also had 2 red zone targets. Corum did have 3 red zone opportunities of his own on his 31% snap. So like this would be one of the ones just because of the offense that like should be rostered as a cuff. And then you may get that like he falls in the end zone. We'll talk about the Seahawks here in a second. And I can't really figure out the tight end room. Even with Higbee potentially being knocked out, he was at 39% snaps. I was thinking that there's a possibility that like Terrence Ferguson might be schemed up like with the shots out the tight end position, especially if they're running like 13 personnel, but like you see no opportunity. So like that's not predictive at all. The guy who got the spike this week, 69% snaps, 2 for 2 for 14, Colby Parkinson, because he's a tight end and they're very touchdown dependent. Like I don't think you're going to be able to predict any of this stuff. 37% snaps for Davis Allen. No usage. That explains why like the wonky tight end usage. Nothing to talk about with the Ravens. Other than Rashad Bateman was out, and then you did get a little bit of a spike usage-wise out of DeAndre Hopkins up to 69% snaps in the game. All right, Saints. So they're going to be coming off a bye, and then we can talk a little bit, not Jake Haener. Tyler Show did look better to me in Week 10 against Carolina. We can talk about like if it's going to carry over coming out of the bye. If you want to be chasing after these guys, like the main one, if he got dropped, would be Juwan Johnson going after him. And this probably would make me feel a little bit better about rolling out Alvin Kamara after like some of these weeks that he's had. So like that's about all I got to say about the Saints, Seahawks, and I got to go to the Saints to talk first, and I'll just get this out of the hay with Rashid Shaheed. 54% snaps in a second game with the Seahawks. That's how the deployment's going to go overall, and then finish out. Cooper Kupp was at 81% snaps. You had Torrey Horton missing another week, and that's just how it basically goes. And then like JSN, 83% snaps, 12 for 9 for 105 overall. And then running back usage just gets more fun for the Seahawks. So I'll start off with like George Holamani, 2% snaps, 2 red zone opportunities on his 2% snaps that he got, right? Yeah, scroll down here. And then Zach Charbonnet, on his 43% snaps, he gets 3 red zone opportunities. And then Kenneth Walker on his 51% snaps, 16 for 67 and a touchdown, 3 for 3 for 44. That touchdown came on a 1-yard rushing touchdown, which is normally what Zach Charbonnet has been coming into the game and doing. So like, yeah, good luck on that one being able to predict. Like, yeah, the Seahawks don't care about your fantasy lineup overall on that one. A little bit of tight end usage. AJ Barner, 11 for 10 for 70. I believe he had 2 red zone opportunities in this one. One of them may have been a carry. And then Elijah Arroyo was down 37% snaps, two targets. So like that's how it's going to go sometimes. Steelers a little bit to talk about with them. So I guess maybe there's a broken wrist or something like that. Non-throwing on Aaron Rodgers. Didn't need surgery. Like expected to miss. It says right there. Expected to miss this week for Aaron Rodgers. This gets a little fun because we may talk about like Will Howard potentially getting some usage this year, like goal line fullback Will Howard. If you're wondering that, like I would expect it's going to be Mason Rudolph. So I don't think you're going to be able to get cute like that. Let's see. Jalen Warren goes down with an ankle at his 28% snaps overall. And then you get Kenny Gainwell. And again, like the taco in my high school league actually got the spike week with Kenny Gainwell because he just left him in the lineup all the way to this point. 63% snaps, 9 for 24, 8 for 7 for 81 in the passing game, 2 receiving touchdowns to go along with it. And again, like I imagine it's not going to stay that consistent with Caleb or with Kenny Gainwell if Jalen Warren misses, because we did get Caleb Johnson sighting in this game overall, and he did get some like red zone opportunity. I think I wrote down also on his 12% snaps. And then this is like I'll just bring up like Roman Wilson 57% snaps in this game versus Calvin Austin down to 29% snaps, and then I did see the clip of Darnell Washington just like looking like a right tackle Derrick Henry defensive backs, like again, like because they don't care about your fantasy flying up 71% snaps, 5 for 4 for 67. I don't think any of that's going to remain consistent. Did not write down any red zone opportunities when it comes to the tight ends for the Steelers, and that's on top of the fact if you're going to be having like probably Mason Rudolph rolling them out there this week. All right, Texans, they were able to pull this one out right mirror against the Titans. Davis Mills goes out and there's Davis Mills things. Right now, we're all tracking that CJ Stroud is going to be out for another week with that concussion. Nick Chubb was 26% snaps, and then Woody Marks was at 66% snaps. The 3 red zone opportunities went to him again this week. If you're wondering about like if you should be worried about any of that stuff, wide receiver usage, I guess like Nico College, like whatever listed as full practice participant. Like if you're wondering about that. Xavier Hutchinson was at 53% snaps overall in the game, 61% snaps for Jalen Higgins. So you're getting closer to being able to, maybe you're going to be able to predict him 7 for 4 for 55 overall in the game. Noel was at like 26% snaps if you're wondering. And then Kirk was at 51% snaps overall. And I didn't write down any red zone. Dalton Schultz continues to give you your 40-degree day, 69% snaps, 9 for 6 for 51. And then Cade Stover was active, 20% snaps, no usage. All right, Titans, a little bit to talk about, but again, if you're chasing any Titans, you're not in a very good position to win your league at this point. Tony Pollard, 49% snaps overall. I don't think they had any red zone because I didn't write it down. Spears was up to 53% snaps in this game. Remember, like this did go down to the end when it comes to the Titans. It was a closer game. Calvin Ridley got placed on IR, some type of leg injury. Ao Minor was at 85% snaps. No idea what's going on with ever injury that he has potentially going on. And then Deke Dyke, whatever, chest injury. He was at 27% snaps overall in the game. And I believe that Van Jefferson did vulture the touchdown right there. And I probably don't care about the tight ends that are rolling for the Titans at this point. If you're going after any, there's no big usage flop overall with those two guys. Finally, the Vikings, and not a lot to talk about with them other than like the running back usage. So Aaron Jones was at 67% snaps in this game. 1 red zone carry, 2 red zone targets. Jordan Mason was all the way down to 16% snaps. He did have a 16-yard run on his 1 red zone opportunity that he had. That's how he cashed it in. So if you're wondering about whether or not you should be holding on to him, it's saying that this is like trending more and more towards Aaron Jones's backfield, and they don't look good in the first place. And I don't have anything to say other than like, Justin Jefferson, obviously downgrade. What's his face? Jordan Addison downgrade. Hawk's going to be downgrade just because JJ McCarthy does not look particularly good overall. All right, so that's all I got from a fantasy football perspective, and hopefully I will get this done next week on time.